Hello everyone, and welcome to this deep dive into the Temple of Sethraliss. I am joined by my little friend, Nhis over here, and that's Carbine. And that's just Borz, he's just playing the harp. Hello, Borz. Alright, lads.
Don't mind me.
We're going into the Temple of Sethraliss.
Wait a minute. Vathis.
What?
Are we going underground?
No, no.
That doesn't seem right.
No, that's crazy. Don't you know Sethrak live above the surface? They don't live underground.
That's ridiculous.
That's
I don't
ridiculous.
believe that.
That's just silly.
But let me say, as the residual Vulpera here, this is probably one of my favorite dungeons in the entire game.
Absolutely. Like, for me, it's just the architecture. Like, the artists just absolutely nailed the aesthetic of the Sethrak. Like, every nook and cranny. But yes, today, we're just going to have a little explore around and talk about the Sethrak in general, and probably some other factors. Most importantly, they do in fact live underground, as you can tell by this lovely, lovely skybox. We'll just clear the way first.
Well, the whole thing about this temple is it was essentially the greatest monument to what was at one time for the entirety of the Sethrak.
Oh yeah,
Their lore.
Sethraliss. She basically slithered into here and died of her wounds, and they built the temple, I wouldn't say around her body, but kind of close to it, which we'll see as we go further on. But if you look out into the skybox here, you can see like a bridge, and it's hard to tell because it's hidden away due to like the large rocks, but there's just a little passageway where the Sethrak continue to live. Pretty interesting. I wonder how expansive it can be, and also notably, we are technically underwater at this point.
That's right.
This place is built
North of the temple. North of the temple is the beach, correct?
Yeah, which begs the question, how's light coming through, as you can see on the top there? Pretty interesting.
Well, the glory of Sethraliss.
The glory of Sethraliss, yeah.
Glorious Sethraliss.
So, in case we'll go for a bit of a rundown on the Faithless, they're not very nice Sethrak. They were led by Korthek, and basically, you know, get a little bit power hungry, you know, just want a bit of that domination, and through the course of Vol'dun, you help the Divided, which are basically what the Sethrak should be, you know, bit more peacekeeping, less inclined to, you know, start wars with people. These two, unfortunately, they are faithless, and we've got to deal with them. But we'll take a note of their address over there. It just shows how a menace Sethrak can be in combat. Like, looking and zooming around there.
I wouldn't mind knowing to do it myself.
Well, the whole thing to the Sethrak is, from birth, they have such a natural concentration of just the ability to channel lightning through their bodies, through their blood veins, which, you know, any living being's body runs from electronic pulses from your brain, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They can stimulate their muscles, they can touch you and you'd fall over. It's like a taser, right? They lightly tap you and you just fall over because you can't do anything.
Sethrak would make good engineers, I'd reckon. Like, get one of them to power up your generators free of charge, I guess.
I'm just now imagining a bunch of Sethrak and a hamster wheel powering a generator.
What will become of the Empire?
No loot, unfortunate. I do love the aesthetic of the Sethrak here. Like, they got a bunch of pillows and interesting choice of food. This looks like grub over here.
What culture would you say is largely the Sethrak is largely inspired by?
I get
Seems like a bunch of different kinds.
I get told a lot. It's mainly Arabic. That's what people think they are inspired from, which makes sense, given, you know, the sandy sandy aesthetic. But honestly, it's hard. I'd say I'd go Arabic.
There was actually a point in time where I read something about that. There was, of course, it was kind of a nomadic desert culture, like pre-Persian Empire at some point. And that was the basis of the Vulpera. And this particular culture did have a revolt against, like, a growing empire at the time. So, like, the entirety of Vol'dun is basically a retelling of those two cultures, and the name of the two escapes me right now. But it's like pre-Persian era. But there's obvious Persian influence as well, like with the weapons, for example. A lot of their weapons are very curved. Very light, one-handed.
Curved swords, like what's
Skyrim.
reminds me of Skyrim. They got curved swords.
Curved swords.
If the Sethrak do get included again hopefully in the War Within or in the future, I want just a passing NPC to go, you seen those Sethrak? They got curved swords.
Indeed. There's pros and cons to having such hardly curved swords like this.
It's made out of glass, as far as which, like, looking at the model, it doesn't look like it can actually cut anything. But I guess that's why it's electrified. It, zap and then slice, I guess.
Well, the curve does help with that. The whole thing to these kinds of swords is you're going to be moving. You're going to be, like, they're really good horseback weapons, because a straight sword can get caught pretty easily on someone's clothing, someone's armor. Whereas a curved sword, that curve helps you to, like, 1, slice through, and 2, glance off to not get caught.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is with as strongly curved as their weapons are, like these ones, these scimitars, you can turn them around and use those to reach around shields. In fact, there's
It's like a
real
hook,
sword
actually,
types. Yeah. Have you ever heard of a shuttle?
No, actually, I've not.
Shuttles were curved swords that were purposely designed reversed curve.
Ah.
So most typically you see a scimitar held the way that it's being held right now, where the curve, like, does a half moon shape backward. Shuttles curve the other way, so the curve goes forward, kind of like a scythe.
Oh yeah.
And the whole point is to be able to reach around shields.
Kind of like this, the weapon Adaris has here. It's hard to tell from here, but he's got like a polearm, but it's like curved one way, and the back end is curved the other way, which is pretty effective.
It's always been one of my favorite weapons.
Oh, Sethrak! Whoever designed Sethrak weapons, that's just chef kiss, It's just beautiful.
The only thing we're missing is the dagger. Hint, hint.
Oh yes. There should be a rack. If we move deeper in, there's a couple of huts that have weapon
I
racks.
just want to point out this beautiful Sethrak serpent head on the ground. If you look at a bird's eye view.
Yes.
Oh, and it's funny to think, if you look up at the ceiling, how did the Sethrak put this up there? Did they?
Probably, maybe with
Corollusks?
Crawlusks, maybe, or maybe they just
they are
climbed the
famous.
walls.
Yeah, climb. Well, I'd say Sethrak are pretty good at climbing in general, because why would you wouldn't live underground and not be able to climb, right? That'd be silly.
Climb, or dig, whichever.
Oh, there's a nice.
Oh man,
Oh,
that statue off there.
Oh.
Always, I love that statue.
if I can just. There's a little thing going on over. I think there's a wall, but it leads somewhere, just on the side, in the distance. Man,
Oh, I see it.
yeah. Man, it's so. So
The amount
good.
of, I really have to say, the amount of detail that is put even in the most obscure of areas really.
It just makes
I'm
you want to
having
go
a hard
there.
time trying to exactly.
Yeah.
Having a hard time trying to think of other places that are like that.
Funnily
Of course,
enough.
further on, it's even more of it.
Funnily enough, the architectures for the Sethrak must have been crazy. Like, I want to know when they were designing the temple. They had like a map. Like, yeah, so this is where we're going to put a big statue, and this is where we're going to have a big gaping hole to the outside.
Well, when you're working underground, it depends on, the formations of the caverns that you're working in. A lot of this was probably just here, and some of it they probably carved out of the rock surface itself. Some of it they probably masoned and added into it. Like this balcony that we're standing on, essentially, since it's overlooking a really large chasm. This looks like it was, to some extent, carved out of some of the rock face.
Absolutely.
Because beneath us is entirely untouched rock.
And there's probably something down there. Whoa, spooky.
Mm-hmm.
Something
Well, if you
that
look
always...
down...
Oh, I'm sorry, continue.
Sorry. If you look down, like in the direction you were looking earlier, there's a massive Krolus skeleton down there.
Is it? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all the way down there.
I think I just see. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
I
there
see.
it
I
is,
see it over there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing to such a massive monument like this is Sethrak have been around for as long as the trolls.
Oh, yeah.
So they've had the entirety of the world's, the sentient peoples of the world's existence to build this.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people think like Sethrak are a recent thing, but like the quest text and even Vorrik's dialogue pretty much states like, yeah, they've been around since like before the Sundering, and it's insane that we don't know much else lore about them. I mean, it's pretty much obscure. We'll just proceed on and not get shot by arrows.
Don't get sniped.
Not get sniped.
Yeah, as I was mentioning earlier, the Sethrak do favor a lot of war mounts, usually in the form of Krolusk. Krolusks are very large, very strongly, like naturally armored, just very hearty. They're not fast, but they're big, and they just live.
They just live.
Just big old living tanks.
Now we're coming up to the hatchery, I believe.
I need to target something first.
These fellas. Oh yeah, like they breed crawls like crazy. I remember there was a little quest that Vorrik gave you to collect a hatchling, and he was like, "This is a rare breed. We need Krolus." And sadly, Krolus are the only thing that have made a reappearance, and not the Sethrak. Unfortunately, they show up everywhere. I think Blizz just
Really, they do.
yeah.
Show up everywhere.
I mean, it makes sense. They're
Interesting.
tunnelers, but yeah, a bit of a shame that the Sethrak don't follow that. I mean, they even make them out of tents too, like this one here.
Well, I feel the existence of Krolusk in any other underground area kind of speaks towards your point of how extensive and how connected the underground of Azeroth is.
Oh, yeah, I imagine it's like a massive tunnelway, just all connected.
This is
Part
the
of
hut
me
I was
is-
talking about.
Oh yeah. Part of me is actually rather curious to think of, because Sethrak have been around since the Sundering, 10,000 years, maybe more. If they had tunnels that existed in different continents, different countries, I'm curious how many of the tunnels were broken up by the Sundering. Is there a possibility that maybe there are Sethrak pockets that have been cut off from Vol'dun because of the Sundering?
That is a possibility. It reminds me of like the Arathi, less
That's exactly what I was
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about. Yeah, very similar to that.
like. What do you mean? Wait, the Faithless? What are you talking about? They would
Oh
have-
man,
what's-
could you imagine
what is happening?
Imagine meeting up with your long lost uncle who's been living on a different continent, and you tell him, "Oh, cousin Jim is he's a heretic now. He doesn't follow Sethraliss anymore." And he's like, "What have you guys been doing?"
now this section here is my favorite in the dungeon.
Oh,
purely
yeah.
because
Look at all that.
like they did not need to go that far and add like all these NPCs and details, but they went and cooked. As you can see, they do in fact live underground.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
You've got. Let's see. You've got A lot of sleeping ones over there on the right. That one there. A lot of them actually.
Sometimes,
oh man,
you'll see some of them stop by each other and like chat, which is, you know, just
oh yeah, I got a couple over here who are having a conversation.
having a chit chat. Look how massive those doors are. Like, it's crazy.
Makes me
Interesting.
wonder.
Take a peek down. There we go. Like, so many. Oh.
The interesting thing about this is most usually when you have dungeons like this that have wide open backgrounds, it's only the art stills. Like, all the way back there, that's an art still.
Oh yeah.
But all the way up under us, and for a good, I would say, 200 yards, 200 meters, is actually modeled. Fully modeled. Like, you can't target anything. It's
No.
not interactable.
Nothing's
But
targeted.
there's things that are actually down there that's like actually walking around and interacting with each other.
Mhm.
And the amount of effort taken to do that for a dungeon that you're going to spend with a good group at current content time, like maybe 25-30 minutes.
If I could just, it's hard to see from this distance, but I have proper screenshots of like the skyboxes. I'll probably put it up on screen, but in this particular one that we're looking at, you can see just about there's some more Sethrak buildings in the distance, and there's like banners, and it's just insane. Like the fact that like this survived the Sundering, even. I mean, they had all this time to rebuild, anyways. Like,
There's only so much you can rebuild when your entire geography's been changed.
yeah, when some highborn think it's a good idea to play with a toilet bowl.
Yes.
Now here's
Trust me,
the
doubling
question.
ranges.
We know Korthek wanted to go to war with the Zandalari because he's a hungry little bastard. Which begs the question: do you think he wanted to start a war with the Zinajari as well during the time before the Sundering? Because, you know, Korthek thinks, oh yeah, we've got the numbers, we've got the power, we can curve stomp the Zandalari. I bet I can take on Queen Azshara. What do you guys think of that one?
That's really tough to tell because, well, Queen Azshara has her reputation for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would really have to depend whether or not Korthek gained more power than what he has now. If he were to say, if he were to replicate what Yasma did with, the spider Loa, I'm forgetting.
Shadra?
Shadra.
Thank
yeah.
you. If he had managed to replicate the process or did something similar where Korthek literally consumed Sethraliss and gained her power, it's entirely possible, because I mean, you don't save the world just make it a normal trivial thing.
Oh no. It's actually
So
a shame how much Sethraliss sacrifice. Like, you have Zurzar lore, and you have Nazmir lore, like, in terms of quest line, but then Vol'dun feels very self-contained, where it's like, Sethraliss saved the world. Azeroth would have been in a shit pickle if she didn't do anything, and there's no real, like, no one mentions it in the Zara lore.
you would think that Veldraken, of all places, would have that kind of information, but
I guess not. Now obviously these pools are for the not Sethrak hatchlings, but I did a video about this before where I was speculating on how Sethrak actually raised the young, which we don't actually see. I've looked all around Vol'dun. There's not a single Sethrak hatchling you can encounter, and given the fact that apparently Sethrak live a very long time, they probably only raise young, maybe like once in their lifetime, or maybe like on a couple basis. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
you know what these pools are reminding me of?
What?
The Ruby Life Shrine.
Oh yeah,
Very, very similar.
very, very similar.
Right down to the fact that they're in water. I'm assuming that's water, unless it's.
Yeah, I think it's incubation water. It keeps.
Well, the other thing, if you watch this faithless tender here, it's not just water just for incubation. This tender is actually going around like empowering it with something.
So
if he does it,
very
there we
similar to. Very similar. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Very similar to how the Draconoid tenders do it in the Ruby Life Shrine.
It's very no one would pay much attention to these details, but I think what he's doing, if I'm gonna put on my tinfoil hat, these cobras are basically conditioned to be subservient to the Faithless, because as we'll see soon enough, that's basically what they're doing. They're raising an army of these cobras to unleash upon the world. And that is Maricopa.
Also, for the hunters out there, this, if you don't already know, this is the only NPC with this particular skin. So,
oh yeah,
this is honestly one of my favorite skins. I have tamed it, her, whichever, a long time ago. One of my favorite cobras, one of my favorite snake designs in the game, simply because of that glowing beneath the scales.
oh yeah.
Very, very gorgeous.
Alright, we'll take her out then. Or it. I presume it's a female. There we go. Unfortunately.
Poor thing.
Now, here's the fun thing that people may not notice going through the dungeon. This is the start of Sethraliss's skeleton. Yeah. Right here.
Oh yes, up
there, yeah.
Up at
And
the
it
top.
slowly starts to wind the way down. Now, I don't know why they put a skull right there. That's a bit silly.
It's called aesthetic.
Aesthetic.
About this.
Of course. I want to imagine that one Sethrak, like, hey, can you put like a skull, like, just underneath her skeleton?
Hey, see, I actually went on vacation to the to Acheris, and they have skulls everywhere. Maybe we should do that too.
But it is very interesting how we see just how much Sethraliss means to the Sethrak. It reminds me of, as I pointed out in an earlier video, how, you know, the Quillbore and the Agmagan? You see a lot of the ancients, or / wild gods if you want to call them that, they treat, some of them treat their, we'll call it creator if you want to do it that way, or descendants, some with reverence, some with spite, looking at the Centaur and Therazane. But in the case of the Sethrak, they absolutely adored Sethraliss, and it is clear that without her, their society basically goes into complete shit hole. It goes into meltdown.
Well, this kind of goes back to something you asked earlier about Korthek, about what was his goals, what did he want to do, what would he go after, and that's a two-part thing. The first thing is that's actually answered with the current content. Well, I say current content, but with the questline for Vol'dun.
You know, yeah.
So, a very common misconception is that you have the Sethrak and you have the Vulpera, and they're just black and white mortal enemies. And that is not the case.
Yeah.
The Faithless Empire
Must get closer.
had their sights set on the entire world. So it wasn't because of some rivalry specifically. I mean, the Volpera have been living here for, I will say, an undetermined amount of time, because while there's little lore for Sethrak, there's less for Volpera. They're still
Yep.
kind of trying to figure that one out. But the thing that happened with the Volpera is they were just the next closest people when the Sethrak started sending their armies out into the surface. So they would not, once they, and you actually see it when you start to enter Vol'dun too. Like, you can see how they start to enter Zandalari and start to invade.
Oh yes.
Like, they were not intending on just stopping with the Vulpera. They wanted the world.
There's a particular location in Nazmir where you can see they've already begun to terraform with sand in various parts of that graveyard.
I was going to bring that up. A lot of misconception that the Sethrak just naturally, just passively shit sand around them to make their terrain comfortable. But a lot of people forget that the Sethrak lived in the jungles, like before Vol'dun unfortunately turned into a desert. And the whole terraforming with sand, that was very much a faithless thing. I suppose as a method to, like, if you want to invade an area, you want to limit your enemies, like, means of producing, like, food, maybe destroy a bit of wildlife while you're at it, so your enemy can't farm, and, you know, that's the whole point.
Would that not affect the Sethrak themselves, though, or do they have their own specific way of gaining sustenance?
I'd imagine they bring their own food supply as a backup. Like, I'm just picturing, if you're going to invade, let's say they're going to invade Zandalari, and they have those spires that erect sand, it would start to destroy the ecosystem. But the Sethrak, or the Faithless rather, pretty much have lived in Vol'dun for this long, so they kind of know how it all works. I'm sure they have, like, the means to skirt around.
Yeah, I would say if they've been around for over 10,000 years, I'd say they have their methods.
They have their methods. Now, interesting, I'm going to point this out here. This is a Skycaller Spire. These are pretty a big deal for Sethrak. It was they're based. Skycallers are pretty much the mages, so to speak, of the Sethrak. They have more capabilities of using lightning, which we don't really know the extent, but they can essentially erect spires across Vol'dun, and they pretty much use it like a telephone, so to speak. They can send messages across the sky like a text, in a way, like various flashes. They'll give you a sign of what the message is. Pretty interesting.
Kind of like a Morse code, but using the clouds and lightning.
Yeah. So, you know, if Borz was like in Nazmir, and he put up a spire and I had one, I could just text him, be like, "Sup?" What's up?
Gotta give him points for style, I guess.
I also imagine they use them as a means of SOS. So let's say the Vulpera attacked a settlement with this, right? A Skycaller could just be like, "Yo, SOS, help! We're under attack."
Help! The furballs are coming.
Now all of China knows you're here.
Good.
Now, this is my favorite. Well, one of my favorite parts of the dungeon. We don't really know if this was a result of Sethraliss dying, or this was naturally here. But this is what the Sethrak used for their weapons, for their architecture, crystals. They mine the shit out of this stuff. I don't really know what it is. I presume it's not storm silver, because that is found in Koltiris as well. So we don't know what exactly this is. Just a very interesting mineral.
Now, has it been explained, and if it hasn't, maybe you could explain it to me, where the Elementals come from? Why are they allied with the Faithless?
These
or are they even allied?
So these particular, well, at least the boss in the room, was pretty much a result of Sethraliss's magic kind of going haywire, you know, out of control, and it basically forms elemental. As for the elementals we saw before, I assume that's pretty much just enslaved elementals. A lot of elemental stuff going on around here too, which is interesting to think about.
Usually when we start getting involved with any kind of being that has anything to do with ancient times, be it dragons, the Earthen Ring shamans from way back then.
Mm.
The elves, the elementals are also involved. Because aside from the old gods, the only other things that have been on this planet for longer than pretty much everything else has been elementals.
We have a knack for destruction.
Thank you, Vorrik.
You pick at every corpse for treasure.
Yes.
Sethraliss is our
I love throughout the dungeon, Vorrik is just, good job. What the fuck are you doing? Stop looting loot. What's wrong with you?
Do you have to keep picking every corpse for treasure? Yes, it's what I do.
Oh, this. Ugh. I hate this part. I can just skim around. I usually just wait for it to go around. Ah! Damn it.
Oh, I
Oh.
had forgotten about
I
those.
forgot this part.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about those.
Oh, we're gonna have to. Oh. Don't make it easy, do that.
Do these patterns change based on dungeon difficulty? or is that
Yes.
just
Oh.
me? That would
Yep.
explain it. Then.
There we go. I'll explain it.
Damn.
I haven't done the dungeon in a while, but if I could just get it
There
around.
we go.
I'll catch up. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Ah, damn. I feel like imagine the Sethrak who made this. He's just this will get him. The ultimate troll.
He must be very bored doing this all day long.
Imagine the energy cost as well.
Well, I mean, if you're a conduit of lightning, I don't think energy is high on your list of priorities.
True.
Look all the way. Wow, this goes way down there. There's a third level down there. I'm just now noticing.
And
And there's more.
some of them are
There's
just
another
chilling.
Kralisk pen over here.
Oh. How rude of a spy to interrupt us. Yeah, definitely a lot of homes that got going on here.
Well, you have to figure, this is only a temple. Now, this is
Oh,
the
yeah.
greatest temple of the Sethrak, and
Mhm.
usually a monument like this, a monument of this scale, is usually built around what could be considered a nation's capital.
Mm.
So there is a whole city down there that we just can't get to.
Which is a shame.
Now, this part here, I didn't think about this. These are faithless conscripts. Like, there's a lot of conscripts in here. This is
Yeah.
probably where they start getting trained, I'd imagine. And we just steamroll everyone in here.
Conscripts are literally just recruits. They just got picked up.
Yep.
They just got told, yeah, we're gonna take over Azeroth.
We're just gonna rule the world. And we just come in and go, sorry.
I only signed up for the free dental.
Ooh, there's a couple of stoves here too.
They're cooking. They're cooking.
Some ovens and stuff.
You know, I actually have always thought this. If this area was to be, if the temple rather, as a whole, was to be made a hub of some kind,
This would be
say,
it.
you know, this would be the area where all the vendors would be, or where the portals would be.
It is called a
perhaps.
Bazaar, which is...
Yes.
Imagine what that's where...
But I mean, even if it wasn't, just the way that it's set up seems like it'd be very accommodating to a lot of player-friendly areas in here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Maybe some of the doorways in the walls could be opened up and make some side tunnels.
Hey, you took my orb.
Mine.
So yeah, that's those were the eyes of Sethraliss, everyone. We just toss around like it's baseball.
Now we go through the mouth of Sethraliss, which totally isn't creepy or anything.
No. Now the question is, do you think, because this has not been answered in the book, which I will get into shortly, the exploring Azeroth Islands, which thankfully does give us a bit of context of what happened to the Sethrak after Battle for Azeroth, or at least years later. An answer that we've been waiting for a long time. Do you think, with enough followers, will Sethraliss get her true form again? As we know,
it's
Loa,
possible.
yeah, Loa are powered through their followers, as Bonsami states in the Shadows Rising book.
It's very possible. If she ever did, though, I think I would feel pretty confident in saying that she would be the largest Loa that we have seen, even bigger than
Yeah, because gameplay scale isn't
Torga.
accurate to lore size. Mithrax in the cinematic, when he goes to Desire Lore, he was huge. Now, remember,
He
Sethraliss
was as
killed
big
him.
as the temple.
Yeah, Sethraliss killed him. So, I just picture Sethraliss the size of Jormungandr. She's
Oh boy.
huge, man.
That would be something.
Imagine if she made a reappearance in the Worldsoul Saga. She just pops out like a giant snake.
Hello!
Now this is interesting. Now, look at these Heart Guardians. Now this could just be gameplay assigning reason, but notice they're called Elemental. To make of that what you will. Very interesting.
What element would they be representing in that case?
Well, they look like. I mean, I'm not saying they're ghosts because that doesn't quite make sense. But
No.
Sethraliss does say, as we get into the fight, the temple has defenses, which is very interesting. There we go. Proceeding on. Now this part is just beautiful. Sorry, Guardian.
Oh yes.
The spires just surrounding. I imagine this is where Sethraliss in her true form would have just chilled out.
Or at least
Well,
part of it.
Part of it.
I do not have a target.
Well, you have that really extensive cavern artwork in the background there.
Oh yes, we'll get into that.
Yeah, these statues always reminded me of Indiana Jones,
Now it's hard to.
especially as a native Californian, I've been to Disneyland a few times, and it always reminds me of the ride, the Indiana Jones attraction, because there's just snake statues all over the place.
Just taking a look at the backdrop and on the sidelines. You know, that's pretty snazzy.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty. Now, here's the question that I've been wondering for a long time. We know that, at least for a while, Sethraliss was prevented from being reborn, right? Now, Korthek, at least from the dialogue from the first two bosses you encounter, they speak of defending their master's plan, which is Korthek, but Korthek's dead. Now, did Korthek knowingly have Sethraliss basically locked up, and he pretty much lied to all the Faithless, like, yeah, she's not coming back, lol. Yeah.
Just imagine them saying that, lol.
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 Lol. Yeah, she's not coming back, guys, lol. Sorry.
Well, actually, I think that Nhis said something about this earlier, where the whole thing was Shadra, where they consumed Shadra for her power. And I think that when you bring this up this way, this might be somewhat of what's happening here. Just not all at once, but slow and like from a gameplay standpoint, she's at low health and just maintained at low health, right?
Yeah.
They're keeping her weakened because she is just a font of power.
Well, there's definitely Vorrik does definitely say that she's being corrupted. So even if they're not going to consume her, the idea is to turn her
Into a dark Loa.
Essentially, yes.
Well, look what happened to Rezan.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now the question is, these trolls here, you know, they're obviously recent arrivals, which begs the question, what Korthek doing with the Avatar this whole time? Was just keeping her on ice, I imagine, and until a certain party came along and be like, hey, we can make her into a powerful weapon, yo, just let us in. And Korthek was like, yep, sure, I need more power to conquer the world, go ahead.
It might have been a case of you can't necessarily truly kill a Loa.
No, because they
Like the number of times Hakar has come back.
Well,
because they.
I do have to bring up Togra again. How was Togra killed exactly?
Togra, is that the that's the turtle Loa,
That's
right?
Or
the
that's the
turtle.
really, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. As far as I can recall, Nazmir, the blood trolls basically, he was just chilling, and the blood trolls came along and killed him. Now, considering the time frame of BFA to Shadowlands, I do not like Shadowlands. Technically speaking, Torgra should have gone to the Maw, to the Jonkler.
Well,
but he
that's-
was smart, and he reincarnated himself as a little turtle.
I
Mainly
believe the
with Zonsar.
reincarnation may have been. I honestly can't speak for the Loa, and I honestly am not the most knowledgeable when it comes to Loa, but I would assume that wild gods typically have a natural ability to. Well, I guess I can't say that, because then there are several Loa who have been killed and have not returned. I was simply going to bring up the point that Argus, when he was killed, his soul was what broke the Shadowlands. So if Torga had a way of returning, it wouldn't be through Shadowlands. Otherwise, he would be
I
there.
guess Torgra didn't want to deal with the Shadowlands law. I don't blame him.
I don't blame him at all.
I don't blame him.
Well, at least Shadowlands did give us the whole everything about Razan and Vol'dun. It's
And
like
then
the
Did
one
get
good
to
thing.
see the other side, which was nice.
Yeah.
The music there's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I
And
love that
also, you
drum
can
line.
never go wrong with more of Old Bwan Samdi.
We will restore you.
Yeah.
The hex is shattered, but the temple's defenses have awakened.
There we go. Good thing I'm a healer. Partially.
Yep.
And I
I'm trying to think of how I used to do this by myself. It was either the Heart of Azeroth or a pump action bandage gun.
Use your
That's typically
Volpera
how I-
flask.
Anti-fragment.
Well, I am gonna be honest. I had forgotten that the Volpera flask was there for the longest time because I never actually used it. But
The damage side of it got a buff recently.
yes, that's why I actually want to get back into it, because the Bag of Tricks has been buffed and it's
Oh, there she
viable
is.
now.
Here she comes. Oh, she's mad. I don't blame her. There we go. Beautiful. And that's a wrap. Ooh, we did, boys.
Very nice.
Thank you, Sethraliss.
I will never get over how awesome the model, the Sethrak model for Sethraliss is.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's gorgeous.
It's such a shame because other Loa, like Akunda, they don't really have like their own unique model per se. Sethraliss has her own, and yet we don't even see her for that long.
I
Now,
believe once you do complete the entirety of the Vol'dun questline, at least the main questline, you do see her avatar at the top of Teresa Devoted. Like Vorrik's up there, and a couple of others are up there, just
Jill,
maintaining her and talking, yeah.
as I pointed out a while ago, so basically, from what I understand, it was, I suppose, planned for Sethraliss to partake in the battle against Mithrak, because that's the whole point of going into the dungeon. Vorrik says we need her Aloha, but then
Thank you.
she just AFKs like Bane does in Shadowlands. Because as you go
You know, he
to
took a 2.5 year AFK.
when Mithrak shows up, Sethraliss is nowhere to be seen. She doesn't appear in the all-D array to help him take him down. No, she's just no. I imagine this is a state of, well, I guess they just ran out of time, or they just scrapped. Vol'dun got scrapped a lot, and they just...
I'm just reminded of there's this the Family Guy Star Wars special where they're currently going through fighting the Death Star, and Chris Griffin, who is Luke Skywalker, he's like, Enterprise, help us, we need our help. And then the crew of the Enterprise is just sitting there on the bridge, are like, we're having tea, thank you very much. That's what I kind of picture them doing up in the terrace. We can't help you right now, we're busy having tea, thank you.
I mean, I think she needs a cup of tea after all the crap she's gone through.
Hey, I don't blame her at all.
Now,
I want to get a better look back here.
Oh, yes.
This really goes, like, it's really hard to tell how far back this goes, because you can tell even way... Oh, I can't ping that. Way in the back, way in the back.
You can just see a bridge,
lights.
yeah.
But I mean, I'm talking like in the farthest possible reach of the skybox, you can still see what looked like lights or torches. And it's like,
yeah, I just noticed that, yeah.
All along the spires and everything.
Yeah, it goes on and on and on. It's amazing, really.
I'm surprised there's not a radiant echo going on down there. Yeah, in the wall within, there's a lot of radiant echoes. It's like there's one for the Quabus, which is basically, I think it's alluding to they were once Ancohen or /Genu, and there's some blood trolls apparently around in one of the radiant echoes. Unfortunately, there's not any radiant echo that I could find that has Sethrak, which is just a shame.
Yeah.
I really think they just forgot about it, which, given this massive underground, it's full of potential, and I think it would be a massive injustice if they don't include them.
I feel as if this dungeon alone, if you were to take the skybox, if you were to take the modeled areas of the dungeon with the actual NPCs and put it all together, I don't think I would be that remiss to think that it would be as big as the Zeralat Cavern, if not bigger. So there's definitely a whole lot of implication here. So, I mean, why wouldn't they want to explore it more?
I would easily say bigger than Zeralek. I mean, just this spot alone.
I suppose I wanted to take a conservative estimate, but definitely would look like there's more to it than that.
They could certainly, if they want to explore Sethrak culture more, they could just downsize it to like a certain area. Maybe, like, see that bridge over there? They could probably do something in that area. But anyway, like, the sky's the limit when it comes to underground exploration. We know there's the Undermine, which that was heavily awaiting for years, many years. And there's the stuff, the Haranir, the bat elf troll things.
Someone's gonna have to remind me if the Haranir have been there as long as the Undermine, because Haranir seems like a brand new species to me. But then again,
we don't know much about the Haranir aside from one of them who has a deep connection to the World Soul, and they're very seclusive. They cover their tracks wherever they go, which, if that is the case, then yeah, I guess the Sethrak probably never bumped into them. Makes sense. Because we know the Radiant song is going around and, you know, texting people in their heads.
At everyone? At everyone?
Yeah, literally, at everyone.
Everyone's sending, it sent them all a group message.
And it would be a shame if they didn't have at least Sethless or Vorrik go, hey, wait a minute, something's not right here. We better go check it out. If you had to include the Sethrak in the War Within, how would you go about it?
Well, just off of my own assumption, it seems as if they would want to take part in the fight against the Void, because that's what Mithrax was an agent of the Void, and their Loa was threatened and essentially killed by an agent of the Void. I can't see any reason why they wouldn't want to prevent another Mithrax from occurring.
Yeah. I imagine Sethraliss would jump on that and be like, no.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's also been a lot of talk among Vulpera circles in particular that there's no reason why there can't be any followers of the light up here. I mean, you could always argue that any class that has access to a priest could be a paladin, and then if any class could be access to a paladin, they would want to fight the Void. But that's a different topic. But the Duneblessed concept that I have seen shared.
Oh yes,
around
shout out
like,
to Duneblessed for that amazing homebrew content.
Duneblessed.
Good friend.
You have I gotta give you credit, my man. The Duneblessed is one of the coolest concepts I have ever heard of, and that needs to be brought in as much as the Sethrak do. I mean, I'm not even joking. But just the basic idea is that there is enough there to where if the Sethrak were included in a fight against the Void, against Xalatath, against anything related with what's coming up in the Worldsoul Saga, I would not even blink. I mean, it
just
makes
perfect sense.
Be explained.
Like, yeah, and for them to be excluded just feels wrong. But in saying that, we do know they have it's hard to say with Blizzard, but I get a feeling that they haven't forgotten about them. Now, we're going to go into two things to why I think they haven't quite forgotten about them. First one is Kasthrik. Now, I assume you two have heard that name muttered before.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
She is a Sethrak encountered in the Fungal Folly Delve, and she's part of the Dragon Scale expedition. Now you would think, there's nothing particularly interesting about the Sethrak. You know, it's just an NPC. Plop it down, call it a day, right? But she does have extended dialogue, which I've delved into before, which you can watch here if you want to. She speaks of joining the Dragon Scale expedition because their goals match hers, and helping the expedition expand their minds. And she is the first confirmed Sethrak illusionist that we have seen. So we know Sethrak have mages, but then again, anyone can be a mage, you know. And she talks about going to Orgrimmar, and I'm sorry, Alliance players, but she does single the Horde only as the ones who have helped the Sethrak be liberated. And
well, I mean,
yeah.
Let me just branch off for a second. As a Vulpera, let me say, if the Alliance got involved, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, with all due respect, Alliance really were not kind to the Vulpera, so I don't think the Sethrak would want to be a part of that either.
Another reason as to why I don't think the Sethrak would be in the Alliance, well, I'm going to go over the book right now. I'll probably put up a page on it on the screen, but I shall read it out here. So, according to the book that features Lorthamar and Dalithra, I hope I got her name correct, I apologise, they travelled to Vol'dun, and we can see that the Sethrak are, quote, in a state of exhaustion and mourning. It persists throughout their time, or at least Theressa's visit to the temple. The Sethrak were very welcoming to have her inside, you know, showed her around, and it seems to be rebuilding. Now, we don't know what exactly they're rebuilding. It could just be just general structure, maybe. there is no mention of the terrace of the devoted being rebuilt, but I think we can just pin that down as they're fixing that up because that was very damaged. And I guess Sethrak liked mint tea as well.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't they? Carrying on, they also have been mending relations with the Vulpera. It notes that there are a couple of them trotting around the Thundering Terrace, and the Faithless, who basically just gave up, being like, "Yep, okay, you win." Some of them have gone to the Temple of Akunda to essentially forget about the war, which is interesting. I imagine some Faithless were, some Faithless were probably manipulated by Korthek and the others, right? Fed propaganda, and by the time the war was over, I imagine some of them were just like, "Wow, what have I done? I fucked up." And some of them most likely did have a hand in the enslavement of the Vulpera, and I imagine that weighs heavily on their consciousness. Sethraliss probably gave them a heavy pep talk too.
I would say, if you've gone for as long as they have without your Loa, and it returns, I think that would definitely shake you up a little bit.
Absolutely. And to realize your leader was probably lying to you about, she's not coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would probably send them into a frenzy, or not a frenzy, a bit of a shake-up. Yeah, so Akunda canonically has some Sethrak worshippers among his ranks now. Good old Akunda.
I've always been curious about just how many other species would be part of Akunda's following now, because according to my memory, in the Vol'dun storyline, you do...
Yes, primarily Zandalari.
You become... Yeah.
You become Akunda. Well, temporarily.
Yes. So, well, yes and no. I mean, I guess it really depends on whether or not you consider it, but if it's an official title or not. But I do feel like if certain Loa are willing to incorporate other races, and I don't see any reason why Sethraliss wouldn't either. But
the only thing we really know about Sethraliss, like values, is that she doesn't she hates people who are dishonest. She values honesty. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And given the whole society of this around the Sethrak being peacekeeping, I imagine she has a very, very motherly instinct about her. Gentle, but obviously, piss off a Sethrak, you get the fangs.
She definitely does not suffer fools.
Best way, she's a gentle storm, but, be careful because you never know when lightning will strike.
Alright.
As for the Vulpera side of things, I will delve into that. The Vulpera, the abandoned burrows, which I believe that was the first area you technically start out in Vol'dun, captured. That is essentially being rebuilt. A lot of Vulpera hang around there, which is close to the temple, by the way. They don't hide their presence anymore. They're making new construction. We don't know what it is exactly, but it is described as very lively, very hectic and energetic.
I am looking forward to seeing that hopefully incorporated into the game, because honestly,
that would make a good
burrows, I don't know what it is. I really like the whole Vulpera aesthetic as much as I do the Sethrak, and I just love the idea of having their own little, I can't explain it very well, just their own little personal area similar to the Hideaway, but it's more permanent. I want to see adaptations made to the burrows themselves, I want to see if the Vulpera have any other kind of architecture other than caravans. Because if they're going to have something that's permanent, that's long-lasting, I would assume that they would want to.
Because they're always on the move,
out.
aren't they? They
yeah, exactly.
They don't really have a.
In fact, the hideaway is always described as being capable of moving at a moment's notice. So if they finally have a place to settle down, I would be so thrilled to see that. That's one of my biggest dreams. I mean, apart from more Sethrak lore. Sethrak lore.
It is also another thing that I'm going to point out is the Vulpera have taken the Scorched Sand outpost, because that has been abandoned now. The exiles that once lived there were pardoned by Talanji, so they're back in Zandalari. And the Vulpera plan to turn it into basically a trading post, and they're going to use it to trade with the Sethrak. It does note that there's still some wariness to be healed along with the old wounds, but at least the attempt is there, which is interesting. If that could be represented in game, that would be beautiful. I can just picture it now. Like, they have a trading post, lots of caravans going back and forth, Sethrak, Vulpera trading, Totolans maybe.
There would be I'm actually rather surprised we don't have any Vulpera auctioneers yet. It seems like that'd be perfect for them.
It is, and to note, Zulman, Yeah, Zulman, sorry, the skeletal pirate area, sorry.
Zemlan.
So thank you, Zemlan, my apologies. Zemlan is described as a functional dock, so to speak. It's lively. We don't know much about Zemlan at the moment, but according to the book, when it gets nighttime, they kind of shutter the doors and the windows. It gets a little bit spooky. But the fact they have a functional dock again is just great. You know?
That's right. The
no
ghost pirates have pretty much moved on, haven't they?
Yeah, there's no mention of Shadowstone Harbour, which was taken over by the Alliance during Battle for Azeroth, but the Alliance pulled all their crap out, according to Shadows Rising. I'd imagine Shadowstone will be another spot they will rebuild, make that a secondary harbour, because, you know, why not two harbours? You might as well.
Well, if it's under the control of the Alliance to some degree, that's possible. That might be an Alliance location.
Well, they did,
but
they did pull out.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
okay, never mind.
Shadows Rising
basically
said, yeah, we kind of pulled all resources out of it. Yeah, basically left in Vol'dun hands. I imagine the Sethrak might take that and probably share it with the Vulpera. That's what I'm guessing, because the book does not mention that particular area, unfortunately. But we can only speculate.
Well, here's one thing about those two different harbors is they literally cover north and south for when it comes to Vol'dun. Like, you see Shadowstone Harbor is just west of Temple of Sethraliss. It's up here on the northwestern coast. Whereas Port of Zemlan is down there in the south. Closer, of course, to Zandalari and all of that as well. But
so could that imply that maybe Zemlan would be more focused towards Zandalari trade, whereas Shadowstone is more Sethrak, Vulpera, Tortolan, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I'd also imagine Shadowstone would serve as a maybe as more of a trading hub for visitors of like other lands, maybe. I'm just guessing really.
Well, Zemlan is definitely the larger of the two.
Oh,
so
absolutely. It's very, very large.
Definitely stand to be at least a big transportation area, if nothing else.
Atulamam is basically pretty much the same as we've seen it. It's empty, with a very foreboding sense of death, and there's no whispers anymore, but it does give a sense of don't go near it, don't touch it. It does mention the Vulpera, who are reaching adulthood, basically dare each other to go near Tulaman as a form of as a rite of passage.
Rite of passage. Yeah.
Tulaman is described as constantly under watch as well, so basically any void activity, they just get sniped. just instantly sniped by Volpera.
Surprisingly so.
Well, hey, come on.
Hey.
Give us some credit.
Yeah, I said unsurprisingly. That was a comment.
I didn't.
That was a
I didn't-
compliment.
My apologies. I didn't hear the part of that.
Now, unfortunately, the book leaves out a question that I have yet to, well, I would like to have an answer to. So, you all know the story of how Vol'dun became a desert, right? Sethraliss died, it turned into sand, even though it kind of gets contradicted sometimes, like, apparently it was the Cataclysm, but it wasn't the Cataclysm. It was the Sundering, but it wasn't the Sundering. But let's go off the basis that it was Sethraliss' death that led to the jungles being turned into sand, right? Now, she is back. The question is, will Vol'dun slowly, I'm not saying it'll be like next week, over time, will it return to a state like a jungle?
I don't see any reason why it wouldn't.
And the fascinating thing is that Sethraliss is, like, she's the key to Vol'dun's basically being a jungle, right? Which begs the question, like, why her? I mean, yeah, she does have, like, a massive presence compared to Akunda and Kimball, right? But what exactly led to her being picked as, like, yeah, you're basically the switch. If you die, well, there goes the land.
That really does bring to mind a lot of questions about what the Loa hierarchy really is. Because obviously Razan is one of the most noteworthy. He's the Loa of Kings. During the Zandalari, the Zuldazar quest line, it's very clearly implied that he is the key to Rastakhan's nobility. But it just seems odd to me how Razan would be elevated to such an extent when his death essentially
Left a vacuum.
doesn't do anything.
No.
Whereas Sethraliss's death condemns an entire region. So maybe it's a matter of time. Maybe if after Razan's death, if things had gone on for 10,000 years, maybe Zuldazar would be a desert instead. But it just seems,
It's just a
again,
mystery.
there's not a lot of there's a lot of speculation as to, in my mind, a lot of speculation as to the power differences between some of these Loa, and I guess
Some of them are powerful, some of them just drop like flies.
yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well,
It all-
if I
it
had
just-
to.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to continue to muse on it, because then there's also Kimball, who, if again, correct me if I'm wrong, he virtually has run out of all of his followers. He's a shadow of what he formerly was, and he still has some presence. So it's like, is are Loa? I'm sure there's someone out there who can really clarify this for me, but it just seems like, do Loa gain their power from fellowship? And if they don't, what makes them more powerful than others?
It's kind of like, I was going to say, like, the Divines in Skyrim. Sorry, the Elder Scrolls. Skyrim. The Elder Scrolls.
It's alright, there's only been like seven copies of 7 versions of Skyrim. It's confusing,
It gets
now.
we know the Divines run off basically followership. The less followers, they essentially just stop existing. But yeah, it's very, very fascinating. One other topic, if you want to jump to it, but if you got any last thing to say about the Loa, go ahead.
Oh no, that was last of my thoughts.
There was a couple of things, if I could
Absolutely.
take
Go
a
ahead.
shot at this as well.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. Now, I know, as was mentioned, Loa, they essentially grow in power with as many followers as they have.
Mhm.
And this can support this idea of Sethraliss being basically the life of Vol'dun. Simply because of how ancient the Sethrak are. How long they've existed, how many there could be. Like, we don't know how many Sethrak there are.
Yeah, we don't know the exact population number, which, I mean, judging by the dungeon, there's a lot. I mean, a lot. Which
Just this dungeon alone, like, just all of the Sethrak that have nothing to do with the military or anything like that. Just the ones that are just out there. We don't know how many of them there are. But at the same time, so the one that I'd always held to was the whole when Sethraliss fought Mithrax and had to sacrifice herself. The clash of such powers. So you have a void spawn, you have a void entity that was designed as a weapon versus a spiritual being of immense power that's been around
for a long time.
for a long time.
Yeah.
And for her to be able to defeat him on her own, the amount of power that she had to use, I feel like the jungle turning to a desert was not a result of her death, but more like a shockwave of just those powers clashing.
I think it's.
Could
I
it
think that
be-
was one of the things Blizzard mentioned, but they didn't really explain that very well during the quest line, because as Vorrik says, if you go through the dungeon, I think we missed his dialogue. It didn't quite appear, but he does say Vol'dun became a desert because Sethraliss died, and not much else to it.
Yeah, that is such an open statement.
It could
It
just
lets
be.
you take it either way.
Yeah. I mean, could it also be a possibility that those powers that she used, could she have drawn them from Vol'dun to amass enough strength to defeat Mithrax, and her death caused the powers to not return? Or
It is interesting.
something like that? Like, it's just, I'm just being hypothetical right now.
It is interesting because at some, I think it was just during the midway point of the campaign through Vol'dun, you go to Vorrik's sanctum, right? And he mentions that he can still feel her presence. There's still some power nearby, which obviously alludes to her being alive. Just like the power of Sethraliss is just crazy. Like it's just everywhere, all over Vol'dun apparently.
Yeah, and that just further makes me curious as to why she isn't the head of the Loa, because it means like she's evidently her sacrifice was enough to.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Mother Nature usually depicted as a snake? Right? Is that right?
I would need to look that up. I don't know about. I unfortunately would not know.
No.
I'm not entirely
I mean,
sure.
I remember just this vague image in my head, but I could be wrong. But maybe that was like the inspiration behind Sethraliss, but I could be wrong.
No, I can't speak directly for Mother Nature, but in real life voodoo practice, like actual like Haitian kinds of voodoo, there's two large serpent Loa. One being Damballa, which there is a Damballa in World of Warcraft, but he's completely different from the Damballa from like actual Haitian voodoo.
Yeah.
The Damballa in Haitian voodoo is essentially another Jormungandr. He's a large, silvery white snake of life. Like, he gave all life to things. And with you mentioning how, when we were walking through Sethraliss' skeleton earlier, the allusion to Jormungandr, that could be one thing that they pulled from. Was just legitimate voodoo has, Damballa, and then Damballa's wife Ayawida, who is basically the symbol of fertility and prosperity and all of that. So
That makes as much sense to me.
Yeah,
Really.
absolutely. I guess hopefully we'll find out in the future. Blizzard, please, Sethrak.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
asking,
please.
please. Moving on, there is a couple more topics if you want to go over. So I assume so there was a point in time where the Zandalari teamed up with the Mogu, right? They wanted to conquer the world, as pretty much anyone wants to. They wanted to claim Vol'dun, from the Tolvia and use the was it Halls of Origination? Was it?
I believe so.
If I
halls of halls of origination.
Halls of- yeah.
machine, basically
The
the machines,
reset button.
They want to use the machine to use it as like a weapon. Now, we know, given the close proximity to the Zandalari and the Sethrak, right? But my biggest question was, why didn't they recruit the Sethrak? Now, I have a couple theories I'm going to shoot, and you can answer it as you wish. Theory 1, the Mogu and the Zandalari basically walked up to the Sethrak and be like, hey, you want to come conquer Vol'dun? It's going to be so much fun. We're going to have tea and biscuits. It's going to be a great time. And given Korthek, Vorrik explains how he went mad, how he started to go mad with power and all that shit. This was probably just like the starting point. I'm trying to give a rough timeline, give or take, but basically just before Korthek gets a bright idea to start the Faithless shit. So Korthek is like, maybe this is like a good idea. But remember, they have 3 keepers, Korthek and Vorrik and Sulthis. Vorrik and Korthek led the Sethrak together, but I imagine Vorrik was like, no, this is dumb. This is not a good idea. We should be focusing on praying to Sethraliss, keeping hope alive that she'll come back, and I imagine the Mogu and Zandalari were like, okay, well, you're kind of already having a fitting punishment for not joining us. Your land's a pile of sand. Good luck, GG. And the Sethrak were pretty much abandoned and forgotten about ever since.
Really? Abandoned and forgotten. I really hope that doesn't happen.
I hope not.
Say it ain't so.
Don't say that, sir. But given the context of like the dialogue when you go to Vol'dun, they know about the Sethrak, but they weren't aware of their expansion, right? Which, given the political nature of Bazaar law, they probably kept all hush and secret. There's nothing going on over there. Nothing weird going on over there in that land. Just ignore it.
What is it called? The Blood Troll Temple above Uldir. Apparently, that was a surprise. So it's also possible that they just completely ignored anything about the Sethrak.
There's a couple of things to this one as well. This is more adding on. This is not debating anything.
Absolutely go.
Well, the first one is a question. Are you speaking, when it comes to the Mogu, are we speaking only within the context of like the immediate times when it comes to Pandaria? Because you do run into the Zandalari over there on Isle of Thunder. You do see them over there working with the Mogu in Pandaria. And then in Zandalar's quest line, you do see the Mogu over here with the Zandalari.
I was referring to the passage. I think it was Chronicles. Forgive me, 2 or 3. One of them was talking about Pandaria, and it talks about how Lei Shen teamed up with the got into like an alliance, so to speak, with the Zandalari, and they wanted to rule the world and conquer Ul'dum for the halls of origination. And that part there, I was thinking of like maybe that's where they tried to recruit the Sethrak, but obviously the Sethrak turned around and went no.
So on the Mogu side, spoilers, the Mogu, for people who don't know, the Mogu are indeed like remnants of Titan constructs. They were just the Titan constructs that were installed in what became Pandaria. So they might have had motives when it came to reaching the halls of origination to carry out the plan that they attempted to carry out back in Wrath of the Lich King when it came to Algalon and all of that, to reset the planet. But the Mogu are also conquerors. They used to have dominion over their part of the world, and then they stopped at some point.
Yeah, when the Pandaren basically rebelled and kicked their asses.
Was that after the Curse of Flesh or before? Because I'm pretty sure I remember Mogu that were affected by the curse, and then those on the Isle of Thunder, there were actual like Titan-style constructs of Mogu, but I just can't remember the time frame.
Well, if I remember correctly, the Curse of Flesh didn't really take effect around. What was it? It's hard to get a timeline with these things, but yeah. I think it was just shortly after the Curse of Flesh, and the Mogu were in a disarray. They started beefing with each other. Clans broke into clans. Lei Shen came along and be like, "All right, let's get our shit together, boys. Let's conquer the world."
And then I feel like that would lead up to, at least for why they would be with the Zandalari, or at least seek the Zandalari for allies.
Yeah.
Because the original known world, before the Sundering, the original people who had dominion over the world were the Zandalari. And then you had everything that happened after that, the continents splitting,
And
the Zandalari themselves, the Zandalari themselves mutating into different versions of trolls, and then those mutating further into elves. So the Zandalari have always, one way or another, wanted the world back.
Now the question I ask myself is, so we know the Mogu like to enslave and, Pandaren, they use them as like slave labor and that stuff. And one of the questions I was asking myself is, okay, so why didn't they enslave the Sethrak? They could have, but they didn't. And obviously because the Sethrak weren't written during that time. But let's try and keep a consistent timeline. I imagine, given like the state of Vol'dun it was in, I imagine the Sethrak weren't doing too well at this point, not like fully, still mourning and in disarray. I suppose the fitting punishment for denying both Zandalari and Mogu were, alright, well you have no allies, you guys could just basically die out.
I think there's also an important thing to mention is just the arrogant nature of the Mogu is on its own special plane. It's in its own league. There could be a possibility, just in my mind, that the reason why they didn't bring in the Sethrak at this point is because they literally did not see them as worth their time.
Potentially.
Maybe even when regarding the various the temple, for example, or various other cultural entities that existed, they probably just saw these desert or these snake men that were in their mind possibly on their way out because the Sethraliss was gone, so they could have potentially just not even bothered. It's not a matter, but honestly, again, that's just speculation for me.
Absolutely.
Well, one thing
Oh no, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, one thing I want to bring up brings another point to something you had mentioned earlier. The very start of the Vol'dun questline, when you're first entering Vol'dun, the people you're with act shocked to see the Sethrak on the surface. To quote something along the lines of the Serpentmen, I thought they were beneath the dunes. It could have been some level of, if there was any contact with Sethrak, it was very, very, very sparing contact. If any at all. Because from that one statement, it sounds like the Zandalari, at the minimum, know of the Sethrak, but don't regard them because they kind of just have lived underground. Well, never mind. No, Sethrak can't live underground. I'm sorry, I forgot about that.
It's just talking nonsense.
I'm talking nonsense, but anyway, so in my wrongful statement, since Sethrak can't live underground,
Correct your statements, so Sethrak do not live underground. Just ignore all this underground structures. What are you crazy?
Those have been there. It's coincidence.
yeah, no, that's
Well,
all coincidence. Don't worry about all of that. Like,
Coincidence.
But that honestly, to me, just serves as further proof that Rastakhan just did not have his eyes open to anything beyond Zuldazar, because there's the blood trolls in Nazmir, and there's the Sethrak in Vol'dun, and evidently, whenever we go beyond Zandalar, everyone's like, holy crap, what is going on out here? And it's like, I don't know, I mean, maybe you should have been paying more attention, because now these things are
happening
at your doorstep.
Yeah.
But
unfortunately,
oh no, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go first.
It's going to be brief. To Rastakhan's, I guess, to his benefit somewhat, every time the Zandalari have ever been anywhere else, we've had to fight them and defeat them. So, like, every time they've been anywhere else, they've been trying to reclaim lands that they believe were their own, because they used to own the world way back when. So after so many times of sending so many different war parties, scouting parties, small invasion forces, he probably, depending on how long he lived, he probably only wanted to maintain his kingdom at that point. He didn't want to send anybody else out. He didn't want to see anything else. He just wanted to say, okay, this is my slice of the world. This is where we are. This is all I care about.
His advisors obviously played a part and be like, yeah, everything's fine, bro. It's all good, man. Nothing bad's going on here. It's just ignore the giant Kathraks coming your way. It's all good.
Oh no, voidlings? What are voidlings? We don't have voidlings here. Don't worry about those whispers.
just ignore the blood trolls at your doorstep. It's all good, bro.
There's no Fire Nation in Ba Sing Se.
There is no war in Ba Sing Se.
There you go. There's no war in Ba Sing Se.
There's no war in Zandalar. I think I just forgot my point. Oh yes. With the context of the Faithless and Devoted War, right? My original thing was that this was a recent thing, right? But according to dialogue quest text from a Vulpera, Faithless have been enslaving the Vulpera for generations. We're talking maybe like decades, centuries, right? Which begs the question, when did this Faithless thing start? My guess was it was shortly, so after the Sundering, after Sundering, and then you had the whole Mogu Zandalari crap going on, and I imagine at some point Korthek was like, you know what, I got a great idea. Let's do what the Mogu and Zandalari are doing, and let's try and just conquer the world, yo. And then
you know what? I just got this really interesting idea. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is just a wild thing. Let's subjugate people.
It's funny in context because the Sundering happens, right? And I'm going to go on a limb here and say Korthek and the Sethrak didn't know about the rest of the world surviving, right? So
Yeah.
I just want to imagine him being like, alright, so this is the only landmass left on the planet. Let's conquer it all! Yeah, boys!
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
snake crew for life.
Now, Korthek is indeed an evil bastard, and it is, without a doubt, he's gone mad with power. And Vorrik does say in quest text that he tried multiple times to get Korthek to stop, but Korthek was like, nah, I'm good, bro. I'm good. I'm gonna keep chugging on. And yeah, I imagine, because by the time we show up, the Terrace of the Devoted is the last defense against the Faithless, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Now, gameplay-wise, it's kind of funny. Korthek could have looked out a window and seen the terrace from the temple. But lore-wise, we know everything is like 10 times bigger, so they probably kept it well hidden, like magic and stuff, I imagine. Excuse me. But yeah.
Works for
So
me.
I think the most immediate, easy answer is when exactly did Sulthis die? I feel like the moment Sulthis died was the moment Korthek was allowed to improper enact everything he did to just build the empire and actually start working towards conquest.
Well, as much as Chronicles 4 wasn't the best, it had problems, but it had a lot of good things. It strangely states that Sulthis died recently, but it does mention the Faithless stuff didn't start, like, it started very slowly. Like, after Sethraliss' death, a lot of Sethrak started to be like, man, I don't know, man, maybe I don't need the lower. And that just slowly grew over time. So I imagine Sulthis' death was recent. But the war was probably a long time thing. Maybe Sulthis...
I would say so.
Yeah, maybe Sulthis was trying to be optimistic and tried to hold on to things. Tried to reason with Korthek, but Korthek was like, nah, I'm gonna kill you now.
Well, as with any long-lasting, long-lived race, it typically becomes a matter of their concept of time is spread out a whole lot more than other races. So they definitely had the time to work into things.
Which begs the question, how long do you think, let's say a Sethrak from hatchling to elderhood, how long do you think they live? Now, we're going to use Vorrik as example because he's been alive for about 16,000 years. And look, have you seen how he fights? He does not slow down at all.
Yeah, he still got it.
Don't got it.
No, absolutely. Like that man, don't let him get out his snake cane.
Get off my lawn.
I mean, he was the one who got the killing blow on the Emperor anyway.
Oh yeah, he deleted Korthek. Like, there's no body. He just straight up turned him into nothing. Just deleted.
That's the power of faith.
And yeah. So Korthek was obviously the more military guy of the faith of the Sethrak Society, as mentioned. There's a statue in Zul'jin. That's where you find the message from Sulthis, I believe. And there's 3 statues. Vorrik was most notable as like the more peacekeeping kind. Providing wisdom to his people. Korthek was more of the guy to go to if he wanted shit done. He won things quite swiftly, and he was praised for his military might. Which obviously that means a lot of people started to follow him because he had such a great idea and it just worked out so well. I want to note the hypocrisy of Korthek's statement where, but just before he dies, he's like, Vorrik, I didn't force anyone to join me. I didn't force anyone. And then Vorrik, like half an hour ago, was like, so Korthek started to gather some like-minded Sethrak, and they started to kill anyone who just opposed him.
Yeah, well,
he didn't force
always
anyone,
have to make
guys. He didn't
justifications.
force anyone, but he did kill a lot of people who didn't want to follow him.
He didn't force them, he just threatened them. There's a difference.
He didn't force them, he just threatened them with death, and then he did it.
He didn't tell them to join. He didn't tell them to join with him or else. He just simply said, if you don't join with me, I'll kill you. So
there's a difference.
A little difference, you know. Just oh, you have a choice. Certain things might happen depending on what choice you make. But
Oh, so basically he's playing a fake Telltale game where your choices matter, but they don't. Your choices will matter, and you must accept the consequences, even though nothing actually changes. It just like that. It leads the same end.
well, I guess the question to that is, how actually sane was he? Because we know that they mentioned he went mad with power, but that's something that can happen to anybody if you're
like
sane or not. He went Garrosh mad. Okay, so megalomania. Megalomania has mania in the name, so not everything was right up there, you know? So when he says that he didn't force people, he probably didn't interpret, as Vorrik said, how he killed anybody who opposed the will of the Empire. He probably didn't interpret to some extent of he thought that he was trying to do what he should have done for his people. He thought he was trying to get something done, but obviously his thoughts were skewed. So
I imagine in his twisted head he was doing the right thing, but obviously not. Which begs the question: do you think he was like getting whispers from all the underground stuff, because the Tool of Mana is not that far off, right? And Mithrak was under there, and there was a bit of void activity going on there. Or do you think it was just general madness of holy shit, my people are going down the toilet. I need to get. I'm losing my mind.
Well, I feel like there's definitely a hint of desperation involved, because when you have a Loa, or your god, for example, who you know is real, who exists, you've seen them, you've been directly influenced by them, and they die, I can pretty much guarantee that will not sit well with you, and you will. I am guaranteeing that maybe Korthek had an issue of, now that my god is dead, what can I possibly do? And then maybe there was some whisper influence from a Talaman or any other kind of void entity that Mithrax represented that fed on that paranoia, fed on that desperation. And
we know N'Zoth likes to Skype call people.
Oh, absolutely. That's that's the big thing, that this whole storyline dealt with the Corruptor, dealt with the arguably the most, well, they say in lore that N'Zoth is one of the weaker, but honestly I didn't get that. I thought that he was pretty well built up as being a considerable threat, but
and then we politely peed on him with the heart.
Yeah, we threw a piece of jewelry at him and he blew up.
We threw the dinner plate at him. Eat your dinner. It's off.
But I can absolutely see a combination of Korthek not quite being capable of comprehending Sethraliss's death, coupled with maybe some outside influence, and a lot like Garrosh, where his thoughts may have begun benevolent, but then he just went to more drastic means.
There's a couple of things that I want to bring up for that as well. One is, in the immediate context, the whole plot with Jacques Rosette. So Jacques Rosette was trying to get him to do what he was doing in order to use that to reawaken Mithrax.
Yeah.
You know, the tax of blood and everything needed to bring Mithrax back into being, which ultimately Jacques Rosette did himself when you go to confront him.
Because the
How long?
Zandalari,
Oh,
sorry, because the Zandalari take 10,000 years to kill him.
Yeah.
Quick, everyone monologue before he jumps in. Sorry, proceed.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I mean, World of Warcraft is a Saturday morning cartoon. It's meant to be that way. Like,
Yeah.
that's why we all love it, though.
Absolutely.
But with Jacques Rosette, how long was Jacques Rosette scheming with Korthek? There's one thing that could point to Korthek's perception of things, is how long he was listening to Jacques Rosette. How long was Jacques Rosette saying, hey, do this. You can get the world if you do this. But then the other thing to that is, and this goes along with what Nhis said, the trauma of losing your god and the trauma of seeing your world, your home being destroyed. I'm gonna point back to Wrath of the Lich King, and I'm gonna point at Malygos. First of all, Malygos did
that's a
nothing
good
wrong. You can't tell me.
example.
But you have the aspect of magic.
Yeah.
He gave magic to the mortal races. Taught people how to do it.
And then they fucked up.
And then they fucked up. And then they fucked up. In brief,
Putting
they
it
fucked
mildly,
up. Right.
but yes.
So after the Sundering, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was make a joke. They just had just a little explosion. That's all.
It's a little explosion. Yeah, come on.
So after the Sundering and after the betrayal of Deathwing and all that, he goes and hides in his own little pocket dimension in the Oculus for 10,000 years. When he comes back out, he sees even more blue dragons are dead. When back then, when the Black Dragonflight attacked everyone, the Blue Dragonflight were the first ones to attack back. Because Malygos felt the deepest betrayal because he was like the closest brother of Neltharion. Exactly half of the Blue Dragonflight all gone within like a night or so. So he comes out of his little slump, and more blue dragons are dead. Mortals are using magic to do things like gambling. They've blown up several different places that used to be really cool places and really nice places. They've used it for a lot of destruction. There's been a lot of just greed and power hungering. And then he comes to find his wife is resurrected as a Dracolich, Sindragosa. So he's like, you know what? You guys, I give you toys, and you can't play right with your toys.
I'm taking
so
away your
I'm
toys.
gonna take it back. I'm taking it back. So he, at the end of it, his whole concept was he was trying to save the world from us because we can't use magic. We shown that we're irresponsible with magic.
Just a little, just.
But he
just
was
a
doing it by capturing or killing every kind of anybody who uses magic.
Yeah, which wasn't very. Wasn't the brightest idea.
And about to
Just-
turn Azeroth into a minor black hole. You know, focusing all of the ley lines into one spot. And when you go into the Nexus towards the second to last boss, you can see where the world is starting to just unravel and twist and like collapse in on itself like a black hole
Oh yeah.
because of all of the ley line energy being put into one spot. So if he wasn't stopped, we would have literally like
Just poofed. Poof. Yeah. In the context of Korthek, yeah, I can see like similarity. Like he was desperate, but obviously, the further you went, he just went off the rails completely. In saying that, Vorrik did obviously try many times to get him to stop, but he wouldn't. And at that point, you'll just be on the point of redemption. You've done he's committed a lot of bad shit. And the only answer Vorrik answered to gave Korthek was death, which was, I think, was the right choice. Even if Korthek snapped out of it, I'm sorry, but Nisha would take his head. No.
Yeah, there's unfortunately too much
blood.
There's too much blood there.
Now onto Vorrik, everyone's favorite green snake. First off, we have to admire, despite everything that's happened, Vorrik has not broke under the betrayal of his people. Korthek's like his best friend, his old friend, his lover dying. He has held on to hope for 16,000 years, and he has not broke from that like weight of like depression.
Yeah, and you know, it just now occurred to me, the way that you were listing it out, I mean, it's, to me, it almost seems like he could be a good, he's analogous to an Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of character. Except maybe not without the whole training a predecessor kind of thing, but it's similar in many ways. He had an order or a people that was betrayed by one of his closest friends, who became lost to whatever dark power you want to think. And then he had to essentially, I don't know if kill them is the right word, but definitely had to get rid of them at some point, despite trying to convince them out of it.
It's over, Korthek. I have the high ground. I want Vorrik to... If Vorrik shows up in the Worldsoul Saga, I want his instruction just to jump off a ledge and go, "Hello there."
Hello there.
Hello there. Hello.
Just trail on for like 10 seconds.
General Korthek. Oh, no, that's the wrong name. I'm sorry. General Vorrik.
I hate Vorrik when the player does something. I hate it when he does that. But yeah, I can definitely see him being like a Obi-Wan.
Essentially,
yeah.
It's mostly in the sense that he has suffered a lot, and he has managed to stay true for a long time, and that's absolutely deserving of a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
So.
And not to mention, he's probably like a just a treasure trove of knowledge that he hasn't really shared. Like, imagine, like that's why I want the Sethrak, why they should appear in the Worldwithin, because he probably has like a lot of knowledge that will be very helpful, right?
He and Sethraliss both, honestly. But
fingers crossed.
Man.
There's still a couple patches to go, everyone. Don't you worry.
Well, I am going to hold on to hope, honestly, because I think it's been beaten into the ground already. But I honestly do feel that the fact that we have a named NPC with actual linking dialogue, and the fact that the Sethrak were, in essence, if not in model, brought back for Dragonflight, means that they have not been forgotten yet, and I'm hoping it stays that way.
Now
or at least doesn't go less than that.
One thing that I think we should debunk is that a lot of people assume that the Refti are precursor Sethrak. Going to that, the Refti were created by Tyr as basically constructs, right? They specifically mentioned to have draconic features, so dragon, serpent,
dragon snakes.
Yeah. And a lot of people say, so they're basically Titan Forward Sethrak. But if you just look at the model, like, we haven't seen a Sethrak with any horns, and it's just honestly probably just a reuse of a skeleton. I mean, that's what Blizzard does.
Yeah.
and they had multiple opportunities to say, yeah, they're precursor Sethrak, but they didn't. So I'm more of the opinion that Sethraliss basically just made the Sethrak. Boom, there you go. Just clapped her hands. Oh, sorry, just clapped her tail, and there you go.
Rattled her tail.
Rattled her tail.
Yeah.
It just strikes me as being interesting. That's all. The fact that they're so similar. Because if they really wanted to have a Titan forged, I wouldn't say subservient, but maybe a Titan forged custodial race that takes care of Tierhold, they could easily have made them into Titan forged Draconid, Titan forged actual dragon races, but they went with a more snake design. I just find that to be coincidental.
Yeah, that leads me to a thing where it could be maybe Tyr looked over at the Sethrak and went, oh, that's cool. Just copy and paste that, yeah, and there you go. I'm just adding some kind of features. Like he's got his own Photoshop.
Don't screenshot this, man.
Original character, do not steal.
Sethrak looks over.
Take the Sethrak, give him horns. It's my character now.
Yeah, yeah, because we do see that a lot. The Titans do build like facilities that look very like Uldir. The exterior, it's a Titan facility, right? But it's very troll design, you know. To something to think about.
I was just going to say, I suppose that also begs the question of how much of the facility was Titan and how much of the facility was built around it by the neighboring species. Because Ulduar, Uldir, Uldaman, they all sort of have the same general look on the inside, but it's the outside. Well, maybe not for Uldaman, but no, Ulduar. Sorry, there's so many Ulds.
I think have better naming conventions. We shall name this one Ulness.
Then again, the trolls all have most of their their cities starting with Zul, so I guess it's not that different.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm just wondering how much of the facility is actually Titan created and how much of it was built around it later. But as far as Titan construction goes, it just seems very interesting to me how many coincidental instances there are with both constructs and with their facilities.
Absolutely.
Well, if we go to Vol'dun, yet another old, the Halls of Origination, the Tol'vir and all that, so the difference between the ones that are the constructs and the ones that are actually inside the Titan facility, and the ones that are flesh that we work with, there's not too much. Like, even within the Titan facility, it's still that kind of ancient Egyptian style.
Yeah.
Even with all the Titan, everything. With the Mogu, it's still a Titan facility on the inside. It's still like old Imperial China kinds of construct. Like,
yeah, that's
so
actually.
What you're saying?
Yeah.
The Titans the Keepers just ran out of budget, and we're like, all right, we're changing it up now.
Well, I think, given how the time frame is going with Curse of Flesh, it seems like the Titans created these constructs based on the designs we know them as, and the flesh, the living corporeal versions of them that came after the Curse of Flesh was not the original design. But then that just simply begs the question: if the Sethrak are the Curse of Flesh version of the, I forgot the name, what was it called?
Refti.
Thank you. If they were the Curse of Flesh version of the Refti, then I'm just sort of, again, I'm hypothetically speaking something that may not even be true, so forgive me.
Well, if we're going off the basis that the Refty are Titanfall Sethrak, then what does that make Sethraliss? Because we all know the ancient / wild gods came from the Emerald Dream, right?
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Well, what makes a Loa would be the first question
Well,
to that.
a Loa is basically just the Zandalari term for something they worship, right?
But you can also become a Loa. And we have that, like, referenced by Blundering himself. He used to just be a priest. He used to just be some random Zandalari priest.
Yeah. And he ascended to a Loa ship.
So, does that imply that maybe Sethraliss was an ordinary Sethrak?
Well, I mean, she was a giant snake, so...
Well, I mean, you could, as a Loa, I would assume you could change your form at will, but...
use a visage like a dragon and turn yourself into a boulder.
I mean, jokes aside, yeah. I mean, if you have the power to do that, if you have the power to change your physical form, I don't see why you wouldn't have some kind of visage like that. I mean, Sethraliss herself has one.
Yeah,
like
an avatar,
giant snake, and the avatar. So I don't see any reason why she wouldn't. But this is all assuming that all of these races, all of them, were originally Titan forged. But if I remember my Trog lore correctly, they were prototypes that didn't work out. So there could be races that evolved on their own, maybe with some influence from wild gods, perhaps.
We know that the Well of Eternity changed the trolls into elves, right? But we don't know the origins of the Tauren. We know the trolls and Taurens pretty much just popped up, right? And as far as we know, there are no Titan Forge trolls, right? It could just be the case of Azeroth / the Emerald Dream just went boop, there you go. Let there be life.
Yeah, I do know that the trolls were, well, I think the speculation is that trolls are considered the native species of Azeroth.
Yeah.
I'm not well versed on my Tauren lore though, so I'll just take your word for it.
Shout out to Anchi lore. Can we get some Anchi lore, please?
Oh yes, that's another one that we really gotta get. Oh, what could have happened in Uldum, really?
Oh man. Speaking of
that's a topic.
Speaking of cut content, originally the Temple of Sethraliss was supposedly surrounded more by water, because it mentions that using the Tide Sage, you'd enter through a ship, which is interesting.
Could that have been somewhat hinted at by the salt flats that are outside?
Yeah,
outside the temple.
Right. Or it's kind of like an entry into the dungeon itself. So, like, maybe you'd enter through like a big hole, like a water. But yeah, it's just very fascinating content.
You're kind of talking like a persistent thing, kind of like how you can see on the outside of Northern Stranglethorn Vale. Once you start getting towards Westfall, you can see the massive gate that would lead into where the docks are in Dead Mines, where that massive warship is.
Yeah.
It's just the little things you see around Vol'dun and the dungeon just makes you wonder, you know.
Part of me really likes the idea. I think I've mentioned this before. I love the idea of trying to plan out or chart out how big a dungeon actually is if it was in the open world. And it really does amaze me in a way to see, again, like it was touched on earlier, how much of this temple is underwater. It has to be.
We're very much underwater at the moment.
How far north have we gone? We've gone pretty far north.
Gone pretty far, yeah.
From the entrance, yeah.
I'm just gonna circle back, say hello to Sethraliss. We'll go back into the Bazaar if you want to head back there.
Works with me.
Works with me. But yeah, as I think it was Borz mentioned. Oh, look, a lizard. 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 As Borz mentioned before, yeah, it feels like everything is very connected, underground-wise. Honestly, I'm surprised the Sethrak didn't find Harrowfall. Is it Harrowfall or Hallowfall? I keep forgetting.
Hallowfall, like the Hallow in Terraria.
Yeah.
Hello.
But yeah, I'm surprised I didn't stumble upon that. Like, hey, look, a big crystal.
Ovens.
But also, Hallowfall has water, like a big ocean.
Sometimes they really... They make the whole concept of how much is underground really difficult to tell when they keep introducing zones like Hallowfall and Zeralek Caverns and dungeons like this. It's like... It almost seems like there's... I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm getting like an Alex Jones conspiracy theory, but it's like, is there a hollow earth in here somewhere?
Come on, let's try that at King Kong.
I mean, so when it comes to that, once you start getting so deep down into the earth, it does just turn into a construct. Like, it is on some Spiral Knight level kinds of, like, once we start getting deep, it is all just Titan construct. Because, the heart of Azeroth is down there and everything, and all the different, like, the heart chamber, the mind chamber.
That definitely makes sense to me. But it's kind of eerie in a way, because I don't know if I'd like to be reminded that the world that I've been living on is a construct.
Yeah.
Kind of gives me a...
Kind of heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
But more terrestrially, more on the living side of things. So we have several things that would have gone through and just made massive caverns in their existence before and after the Sundering. Of course, you have the Elementals. The Elementals have always been here. Especially the Earth Elementals. They have always been here. They have their own little home. There's on and all that down in Deepholm, the place where Deathwing was imprisoned. But then you also have the Black Dragons. When the dragons themselves, when the dragons were blessed with their different spectral powers, Black Dragonflight was given the power of earth shaping. And naturally, they went to go and live under the ground. But they also had the ability to make and move the earth. So you had those two ancient things making all sorts of caverns everywhere.
It's kind of intimidating to think about, really.
I imagine the Sethrak, like, during their expansion of the Underground Empire, they run into a black dragon, like, ah, shit! Sorry. Sorry,
wrong room.
Nope, wrong room. You got it. This is your. Yep, you got it. Nope, we're good. We're good.
So
back up.
You know what that does, though, right? That theory, it basically implies that there is a lot of underground space where a lot of species can live in underground.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I'm just kind of theorizing here. There might be other species that you'd think would be above ground, but are actually underground.
So what you're telling me that the Sethrak live underground?
No, hold on. Shh, don't say that. Don't say that. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to. We'll cleanse that from. We'll cleanse that from the real. We can't have that.
But
I just noticed in the
definitely.
background there's a Sethrak with a Krolosk pet. That's so cute. He's just chilling.
I kind of wish the Krolux were not exotic, as in I'd love to have one as a survival hunter. But
that reminds me. So in terms of classes, what would you assign for Sethrak? I mean, I think they could be every class except Death Knight, Demon Hunter, and obviously they can't be Evoker. Duh.
Well, originally, like if you had asked me that question maybe 6 months to a year ago, I would have said they definitely could not. Well, I would have a hard time believing they're Warlock, but it seems like Warlock is becoming one of the universal classes, so I think they would be Warlock.
Hunter,
definitely the universal. I'm sorry?
Hunter. That's definitely.
Oh, Hunter, definitely.
Yeah.
Hunter. All the universal classes, as far as I'm concerned, are fair game. Maybe Shaman. I could see a Sethrak Shaman. Sethrak
Mage.
Well, Mage, I would say, is a universal class.
Warrior is also a universal class. Yeah.
Yeah. You could argue, again, the argument has often been made that if there is a class that can be a priest, they should be allowed to be a paladin too. But I guess that really depends on who you ask.
If they gave
Sethrak
us
paladin,
if they gave us like what's the word? Like you can be a paladin, but your spells are different, right? Colorizations, right? If I had to pick a Sethrak paladin in quotation marks, they'd be more lightning based, I'd imagine, or lower powered, like the prelates of Razan.
The immediate problem with that one is a lot of warriors' abilities is already tuned to be lightning.
Oh yeah.
So,
True.
Okay.
True. Priest. I mean, technically you could call Vorrik a priest, just not in the traditional term.
yeah.
to be a priest, all you have to do is just be someone who professes and then shares the faith of your people.
Yeah.
So the whole like paladin priest concept, right? The whole thing to being a priest, you don't have to follow the light itself. You can be a priest of Aloha, you can be a priest of the light, you can be a priest of the void, you can be a priest of any kind of thing that is a strong source of faith for your people, you can be a priest of. But when it comes to being paladins, that's more of a...
That's strictly light.
That's...
Yeah.
Or is it?
It can't... So, back on the Zandalari prelate thing. People flavor text their Zandalari paladins as just prelates. They're using the powers of the Loa that they bargain with to empower them in battle.
Okay.
So
that makes sense, yeah.
Possible, but the other thing behind that is it requires you having a people that have a really strong and a really, like, the Zandalari have an empire. Humans have kingdoms. Dre and I also had kingdoms before they had to, fly off in space and run away from their kingdoms.
Team Rocket
They were also
blasting off again.
Yeah. So, like, they have that, like, chivalry. I guess you can say that chivalry to them. There is some sense of chivalry in the form of they have a very established kingdom or empire or something that has a code that they would follow. And I feel like that is the essence of what makes a paladin. Aside from also, of the light. But at the same time, Zandalari prelates.
Yeah, there you
go. Tauren Sunwalkers. Because, Taurens can be paladins, but they're Sunwalkers. They don't follow the light, they don't follow the Naru.
They follow Anchi. That god that Blizzard have refused to mention or talk about. Anytime, Blizzard, anytime you want to bring up Anchi, anytime we're waiting. Oh, I feel bad for Tauren. Anchi got like a mention in Cataclysm, and God.
Yeah, there was.
Maybe there's still time for that. But yes, I think we pretty much covered all the bases for Sethrak related stuff. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about?
Well, I have definitely learned quite a bit because normally I won't say that I am the foremost authority, but I used to really be into troll lore. But
Yeah, man.
this is this is all relatively new information for me to some degree, and since I'm going to be probably maining Vulpera for the foreseeable future, so it's always good to have a grasp on this. But honestly, if I had ever had the opportunity to play Sethrak, I think I would prefer them, just simply because of how fascinated I am by their culture. And
the potential, the potential is all
potential,
there. It just needs to. They just need to remember them.
That's what has to be done. But with that said, man, just
it's.
I really
hope.
Yeah, I really hope that something is done, because there are races in the game that have sadly been left behind, and I think the worst of that, the worst case would be to have the Sethrak suffer the same fate.
Especially considering the whole, it would be such an injustice to have an underground expansion not have the Undermine, which is true, yes. But you know what else feels like an injustice? Not including the Sethrak and their underground not empire, society.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying.
But yeah. I
think
we pretty much covered everything. Is there anything else? Any final things you two want to say?
Yeah, why are you looking at a Canyon Racer?
Wait, I just
Where
found
is
it.
this?
I was
what is?
Oh, there it is. It's over by yeah.
I was looking.
I was like, why are you just targeting some random snake? What?
I clicked on it and I was like, oh look, a little racer.
Oh, there it is.
He's racing. Look at him.
My last few thoughts. I wanted to say that I honestly have gotten a lot of new information, and I am incredibly happy that you guys brought me along on this.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate
this
you
was
both
really
coming along.
cool. Oh, absolutely.
I'm surprised we made it this far.
Hey, well, you know what? Everyone has at least some insight to impart, and I hope that I gave a little bit of it. But
you did very well.
With that, thank you very much. But for right now, I unfortunately have some things that I gotta take care of, so I am going to go ahead and bid you guys farewell.
Oh yes, farewell, Borz. Farewell, Nhis, and thank you. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching, coming this far. We hope you enjoyed our little deep dive into the Sethrak and the Temple of Sethraliss. I hope you share our hopeful optimism for their potential place in at least the War Within, but hopefully the Worldsoul Saga and beyond.
Alright.
Thank you for watching. Have a farewell.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.